So to sing with me, there is only one word today. It's Dayenu, says it would have been enough. This is the anti-entitlement song. If you thought you needed more, maybe you just don't. Yay, bye, 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 yay, bye, bye. Bye, 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 yay, bye, 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 Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Good morning. How nice it is to be with you this morning. Today is Shabbat HaGadol, which means the big Shabbat before Passover begins in a few hours at sundown. We have a special focus this morning on our environment, our creation, and our connection to it as we continue with our theme of springing into Pesach, getting out of our narrow places, getting outside. So we'll have some readings sprinkled throughout our service that come from a collection of our guests from last night, Rabbi Shoshana Friedman from Dayenu, and then we'll be hearing from our guests from Pittsburgh this morning, Justin Berk and Michael Zimmerman. So we will begin with Moda Ani on page 68. Just acknowledgement that we woke up this morning. Gratitude.
לפניך And we continue on page 74 with Matovu. Matovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkanotecha Yisrael. Matovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkanotecha Yisrael. Matovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkanotecha Yisrael.
On page 76 and 78, a pair of blessings, thanking God for the wondrous ways in which our bodies work and for the purity of our souls. Today I'm going to focus on page 76. If you feel like singing on page 78, they do go together.
Page 83, continue with a kavanah, an intention for our day. As I awaken, let this be my thought. May my day be filled with acts of loving kindness. Let me be drawn to learning and discernment, and may my actions be shaped by mitzvot. Keep me from iniquity, disgrace, and sin. May I not be overwhelmed by temptation or despair. Distance me from evil people and false friends. Let me cultivate a life of goodness. May my hands reach out in kindness, and I will serve God through acts of righteousness. Today and every day, may I merit your mercy by living my life with compassion and love. Holy One of blessing, draw me to your words. Teach me the art of sacred living. Baruch atah Adonai, hamilamed chasadim tovim ba'amo Yisrael.
On page 94, we come to Baruch She'amar, where we thank God for having created the world with words. Baruch
On page 96, the Psalm for Shabbat, Mizmor Shir. Mizmor Shir Le'yom HaShabbat Tov lehodot l'Adonai ulezamer b'shimcha elyon Tov lehodot l'Adonai ulezamer b'shimcha elyon להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות 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 טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר בשמך עליון טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר בשמך עליון להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות. On the facing page, Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, followed by Psalm 150 on page 100. And for Psalm 150, we invite you to grab whatever you've got nearby that makes noise, some knitting needles, a little drum. Some folks have those. We've got tambourines around here. I see cups. You've also got your hands. And fill the Zoom screens with joyous praise. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, Hallelu Chasela. Ashrei ha'am shekach lo. Ashrei ha'am she'Adonai Elohav. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, Hallelu Chasela. Ashrei ha'am shekach lo. Ashrei ha'am she'Adonai Elohav. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Together we rise in body or spirit for the call to worship, Baruch Hu, on page 108. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. You may be seated.
This is the day that God has made. Let us rejoice in the opportunity to fill it with justice. The Bible says that we were created in the image of God.
So let us strive to act as God would.
Beautiful is the mind of God, filled with truth, love, and compassion.
Let us realize the truth of our actions, love our global neighbors, and change our ways out of compassion for the defenseless and unrepresented.
This is the day that God has made.
Let us fill it with justice.
We come now to one of the central portions of our service, the Shema, which intones us to listen to each other. And our tradition in this pandemic time is to actually try and listen to each other if we want to, by unmuting if you care to, and singing so slowly that the delays of Zoom barely catch up with us, and we can even hear each other's
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Our next prayer is Micha Mocha, and we sing Micha Mocha during most of our services, and it is a celebration of our freedom, of our redemption. It's our redemption song. It came a long time before Bob Marley's redemption song. So this is the idea that we celebrate our freedom, our redemption, and remembering where we came from in Egypt and slavery. So I just learned in preparing for Seders that we are told that we need to remember the Yetziat Mitzrayim, the Exodus from Egypt, every day. And we actually do that a few different times in prayer, but we just actually sang one a few moments ago at the end of the Shema when we said, Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim. I am Adonai, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. So that's one of the times that we remember. Tonight in our Passover Seders, we actually tell the story. It is another mitzvah to not only to remember, but to tell the story. So that's the difference between those two. And we could have a conversation about what's the difference between remembering and telling the story. But in any case, this one, Micha Mocha, is one of our daily reminders of that feeling of freedom. Page 122, Micha Mocha.
Tefillah begins on page 124 with the meditation and continues all the way through Kedusha on 130. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Koneh HaKol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. נקדיש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני במקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו ומלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפקיד לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. You may be seated. Continuing with Yismechu, a celebration of Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, korei oneg Shabbat. מקודשי שבי שבת, כולם ישמעו
When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me and daily. I'm so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, walk slowly and bow often. Around me, the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches, and they call again. It's simple, they say. And you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light and to shine. Continue with our own silent prayer.
Say shalom, shalom bimromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen, amen. Oseh shalom, shalom bimromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Ve'al kol Yisrael, amen.
We turn now to the reading of the Torah. Torah has a central place in our tradition. Today being Shabbat HaGadol, would be a special Haftarah reading for the day, but we won't be doing that. Instead, our Haftarah, as it were, will be presented by our guest from Pittsburgh. Lots and lots of connections, one of which is on the really simple level that our Torah is called Tree of Life. We can't get along without trees. They're necessary for life, and Torah is necessary for life. So we'll have that as our Haftarah this morning, but we'll be reading from the weekly portion, Tzav. We'll put up a link in just a moment, but we begin with a little bit of Torah reading liturgy.
Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udvar Adonai miYerushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah Torah, le'amo Yisrael. B'kedushato, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Gadlul Adonai iti, unelhom bema shemo yachdav.
Olivia will be sharing our screen for the Torah reading. Comes from the beginning of chapter 6, the beginning of the portion. If you'd like to join in and I'm going to add, well, I guess I can read that. Yeah, that's perfect. That's much better. Thank you. Like to join me in the Torah, in the blessing, please do. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notin haTorah.
Amen.
Vaydaber Adonai al Moshe lemor, tzav et Aharon ve'et banav lemor, zot Torah ha'olah hi ha'olah al mokda al hamizbeach kol halayla ad haboker, ve'esh hamizbeach tukad bo. Ve'lavash hakohen mido vad, michnesei vad, yilbash al b'saro, ve'hirim et hadeshen asher tochal ha'esh, et ha'olah al hamizbeach, v'shamo etzel hamizbeach. Ufashat et begadav v'lavash begadim acherim v'hotzi et hadeshan el michutz lamachana el makom tahor. V'ha'esh al hamizbeach tukad bo lo tichba v'er aleha kohen itzim baboker v'arach aleha hola v'hiktir aleha chalvei hashlamim. Eish tamid tukad al hamizbeach lo tichba. V'zot torat hamincha Hakrev ota b'nei Aharon lifnei Adonai el pnei hamizbeach ve'rimi menu bekumtso misolat hamincha u'mishamna ve'et kol halvona asher al hamincha v'hiktir hamizbeach reach nichoch azkarata ladonai v'hanoteret mimena yochlu Aharon v'anav matzot te'achal v'makom te'achel v'makom kadosh b'chatzar oel moed yochluha lo te'afeh chametz chelkam natati ota me'ishai kodesh kadoshim hi chata'at v'cha'asham kol zachar bivnei Aharon yochalena chok olam l'dorotechem me'ishei Adonai kol asher yiga bahem yikdash. I hope you were reading along. I don't know, sometimes it's going so fast that I couldn't figure out where we were, or my eyes couldn't follow. But well, let's go back and we can look at the translation. I think one of the parts of the translation that's about the portion that's interesting is that in order to keep the fire burning, it requires constant attention. We can't imagine that our tradition or anything that we don't pay attention to will continue. And Aaron and his sons were involved not only in the big moments of sacrifice, but also of keeping the altar clean, keeping away the ashes, though if they build up, then the fire would not be able to burn. So it's a very everyday kind of ritual, and it's also a very special kind of ritual. The Lord spoke to Moses saying, command Aaron and his sons thus, this is the ritual of the burnt offering. The burnt offering itself shall remain where it is burned upon the altar all night until morning, while the fire on the altar is kept going on it. The priest, making me crazy here. The priest shall dress in linen raiment with linen breeches next to his body, and he shall take up the ashes to which the fire has reduced the burnt offering on the altar and place them beside the altar. He shall then take off his vestments and put on other vestments and carry the ashes outside the camp to a clean place. The fire on the altar shall be kept burning, not to go out. Every morning the priest shall feed wood to it, laying out the burnt offering on it and turn into smoke the fat parts of the offerings of well-being. I just want to to slow down for 1 second. The shlamim is they call it the offerings of well-being. It comes from the word for peace. So it's a peace offering. So after all the offerings, the bottom line is peace. A perpetual fire shall be kept burning on the altar, not to go out. And this is the ritual of the meal offering. Aaron's son shall present it before the Lord in front of the altar. A handful of the choice flour and oil of the meal offering shall be taken from it, with all the frankincense that is on the meal offering, and this token portion shall be turned into smoke on the altar as a pleasing odor to the Lord. What is left of it shall be eaten by Aaron and his sons. It shall be eaten as unleavened cakes, as matzah, in the sacred precinct. They shall eat it in the enclosure of the tent of meeting. It shall not be baked with leaven. I have given it as their portion from my offerings by fire. It is most holy, like the sin offering and the guilt offering. Only the males among Aaron's descendants may eat of it, as their due for all time throughout the ages from the Lord's offerings by fire. Anything that touches these shall become holy. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
We have another reading from our collection by Rabbi Shoshana Friedman. Prayer called Prayer for the Earth. Ribbono shel olam, Osev Reshit, Master of the universe, Creator of all, may it be your will to bless with compassion your creation. Please, God, bless the sacred earth, from the ant to the whale, from the giant redwoods to the bacteria, from the sand at the edge of the sea to the mountains, rivers, and streams, from each one of us to all humanity. All that exists in this world, we ask from the depths of our hearts, Elna, please, God, bless it all. Please, God, please heal it all. Tzur kol ha'olamim, rock of all worlds, please place in our hearts understanding of the impact of our actions upon your creation. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elna, God of our ancestors, O God, please help us. Renew within us courage and strength, do your will with a full heart. Help us to heal with wisdom your earth. Golenu matzilenu, our Savior, our Redeemer, teach us to live with each other, with love and with peace, in compassion and in loving kindness. Baruch atah Adonai oseh niflaot uvorei et hakol. Blessed are you, Adonai, doer of wonders and creator of all. And we turn to Misha Barak with that beautiful introduction of the interconnectedness of all. We think of all those in our community who are in need of healing, those who are suffering or in distress or illness, disease, loneliness. We'll be singing for them Misha Barak in just a moment. If you have a name you'd like to add to our into the chat, please do, and we can include it. This morning, we're holding our hearts for healing Julie Arnheim, Martha Berg, Millard Biloon, Howard Bregman, Alfred Brown, Brenda Buch, Olivia Burton, Frank Carl, Christine Danchik, Hinda Sarabat, Chana Pearl, Sandy Davis, Paul DeReamer, Hazan Natanya Bat Chaim Muchana, Debbie Duncan, Jacob Eisenfeld, Faye Fishman, Martin Gluck, Harvey Goldstein, John Gordy, Marsha Gross, Piers Haggard, Donovan Hughes, Kathy James, Naum Kaplan, Lori Kimball, Lee Kramer, Mary Litzel, Judith Levison, Ann Mallinger, Michael N. Marcus, Dorothy Pavlik, Alex Pimpinella, Lev Podorovsky, Thomas Reich, Ann Kovalin Santoni, Chava Bela Batsara, John Shear, John Spear, Jean Strasburger III, Jackie Student, Deborah Wolfslayer, Howard Weiss, Joan Weiss, Claudius and Maxine Willis, Doreen Sisla. We add Nancy as well. And our hearts reach out to all those we've named, as well as those whose names we'll never know, and prayer for healing of body and spirit.
May the source of strength who bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It is now my honor to introduce our guest Devar Torah for this morning from Tree Pittsburgh. Tree Pittsburgh is an environmental nonprofit organization dedicated to enhancing community vitality by restoring and protecting the urban forest through tree planting and care, education, advocacy, and land conservation. Last night, we looked at the Jewish work on the national level to push back against climate change, solve our climate crisis before it's too late. And this morning, we look local at what folks are doing and how we can be directly involved with work that is already going on in our own backyard. Our speakers this morning are Michael Zimmerman and Justin Berk. Justin Berk is a Pittsburgh native who attended Shadyside Academy and earned his bachelor's degree from the George Washington University. Justin is in the commercial real estate lending at Dollar Bank and is enrolled in the Georgetown University Masters in Real Estate. Justin is on the board, the Tree Pittsburgh Board of Directors, and the Friendship Circle of Pittsburgh's Alumni Council, as well as involved as vice president there. In his spare time, Justin enjoys spending time with family and friends, exploring nature, intramural sports. And Michael Zimmerman serves as Tree Pittsburgh's treasurer. He is a graduate of Wesleyan University and Fordham Law School, and currently works as senior regulatory counsel at the Duquesne Light Company. He also plays in the percussion in the East Winds Symphonic Band, including the annual concert at his favorite venue, Rodef Shalom. Justin Berk, Michael Zimmerman from Tree Pittsburgh, welcome to our service here at Rodef Shalom Online.
Thank you, Olivia. Appreciate the introduction. I will share my screen and the presentation. Hold on. Okay. Is everyone able to see? Okay, so Michael and I are here on behalf of Tree Pittsburgh. I know you just got a good introduction from Olivia. Thank you, Olivia, and thank you, Rabbi Henry. Thank you all for having us and listening to our presentation. We appreciate it. So I'll just give you a little bit more detail on Tree Pittsburgh, and then we'll get into the bulk of the presentation. So Tree Pittsburgh is a 12-person organization, nonprofit, 501c3, supported primarily by charitable giving, individual donations, corporate donations, and grants. Our campus, which has been recently developed, sits on a 5-acre piece of land in Lawrenceville along the river. It's a beautiful space. It's ever developing. And we have a 10,000 plus tree nursery, which will be important later on in the conversation. We also have a nice multi-use office space and an event space that we rent out for any type of events that someone might have. Here are some pictures of the campus. It's really pretty, newly developed. That's the tree nursery on the bottom right. And there's a lot more of that because that can't fit 10,000 trees. So here's our mission statement. I know Olivia read it, and thank you. we will get to how Tree Pittsburgh engages this mission statement in many different ways further along in the presentation. But first, we will discuss why we are here and how today is different than other days, and how this relates to, Passover and Rodef and all that kind of stuff. So I think this is a really great time to have this conversation just a few months after Tu B'Shvat, and on the first day of Passover, when we're reminded of our liberation from slavery, our escape from oppression, and the literal and figurative themes that go along with our story of redemption, as Rabbi Henry put it. Especially kind of today, we're at the beginning of spring. We're kind of experiencing an exodus of our own, outside, back into the world, outside of our quarantined homes, hopefully nearing the end of COVID, but fingers crossed. So we're reminded of the great responsibility that comes with Exodus. We remember our story, and we feel compelled to eradicate injustice around the world. On Passover, we read, "This year we are slaves, next year may we all be free." And this personal experience motivates us and gives us the opportunity to examine and wrestle with current situations of injustice in modern society. I think this theme also extends past Passover and into our kind of recurring fight for freedom and justice throughout the history of the world and our history as Jewish people. On Seder, we are reminded of, and I guess as Rabbi Henry reminded us of, we're supposed to be reminded of this every day. We just tell the story on Passover. But we're reminded of our story and our experience with slavery, and that just as we cannot free ourselves from that, we have an obligation to fight for freedom across the world. This Passover motif reminds us of words from Rabbi Tarfon and Pirkei Avot. "It's not your duty to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it." So together we can use our collective power to further just causes across the world and our communities. We all know that injustice and oppression makes itself known and visible in many, many different ways all across the world today. It's very apparent and unfortunate. So why trees? I think it's also important to note that, especially in our conversation today, that trees play an important role in the Torah and in Jewish life and in our obligation to till and tend the earth. So our ability to make an impact and make a difference through the means of trees is pretty profound. So how does this relate to Tree Pittsburgh? What can we do? What are we doing? What can you as a congregation of Rodef do? What can we as a strong community of Jews and as Pittsburghers do to fight oppression in our own communities and make our communities more resilient and stronger and better places for everyone to live? I'll throw it to Mike now to discuss some of those themes.
Thanks, Justin. And hey, I'll pause here and say Justin mentioned we used the word conversation. While we do have slides here, obviously, we welcome questions. So if anyone has anything they'd like to ask, Justin and I are volunteer board members, but we'll do our best. Please feel free to put questions in the chat. If there's anything we can't handle, we will follow up with you later. Justin talked about equity and about injustice. And one of the many ways in which systemic inequities through practices such as redlining, systemic disinvestment manifests is in tree canopy. This is a map of Pittsburgh, and despite our name, Tree Pittsburgh's mission is countywide, but this is just a map of tree canopy in the city of Pittsburgh. The average tree canopy in the city of Pittsburgh is 42%. We have a wide variation among different communities within the city. And those communities with low tree canopy are disproportionately those, unsurprisingly, that tend to be lower income, that tend to be communities of color. So, for example, our lowest tree canopy neighborhoods are Manchester and Chateau, East Liberty, Larimer, and then some communities that were until very recently low income, like Lawrenceville, where I live and where Tree Pittsburgh is based. So what, right? Well, the impacts of not having tree canopy are felt in a number of different ways. Here's one of them. A lack of tree canopy is closely tied to heat. trees mitigate the urban heat island effect. And so lack of trees makes it more difficult to go outside. It makes it more difficult to walk to the store, to visit your friends. You have to use more air conditioning. That makes it harder for people to have those exoduses, those escapes from their into engaging with the outside when the weather starts to get nice. Some other ways, next slide, Justin, in which lack of tree cover manifests is poor air quality. It's no surprise that we're all very familiar with the poor air quality in Allegheny County. Trees mitigate that. Lack of trees tends to exacerbate that. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, and we'll get to the good news shortly. Unfortunately, this is a trend that's been getting worse over the past decade. From 2010 to 2015, the county of Allegheny lost 10,000 acres of tree canopy. Tree Pittsburgh will be updating this study over the next couple of years, but we preliminarily believe that this trend has accelerated over the last 6 years. This is due to a variety of factors, including some large-scale deforestations, but predominantly distributed tree removals that haven't come with replacements. When people are renovating a house, developing an area, trees are often an afterthought, and they take work. Trees need to be tended, especially when they're young. And so when people are doing some work on their homes, trees are often an afterthought, which is too bad because trees deliver a variety of benefits. Next slide, Justin. Trees, they mitigate the urban heat island effect, as I mentioned. They improve property values. They improve community livability. They improve public health outcomes. They're symbolically vital. There's no stronger symbol of resilience and hope than a tree. And as you've heard on a few occasions today, the Torah is a tree of life. It's important to the Jewish people as well to be engaged with trees, to have trees. We were reminded when we met with Rabbi Henry earlier this week that Israel was once lushly forested, right, and has suffered from deforestation over a long period of time. But the fight for trees in Israel remains a vital part of mission for many dedicated people there. So, what can Tree Pittsburgh do? Let's move to the next slide. Justin?
So what can we do as what can you do as a congregation? What can Tree Pittsburgh do to sorry, did you want to add something, Michael?
You know what, I'm sorry, I missed a slide. My apologies. Do you mind if we pause here? So let's talk a little bit about, if I may, sorry about that, some of the things that Tree Pittsburgh is doing. So as Justin mentioned, it's a 12-employee organization, small but mighty, engaging with tree advocacy across levels. So we work from a hyper-local level, that is helping local shade tree commissions and training people to tend and plant their trees, all the way up through regional and state advocacy and policy development, helping municipalities develop tree-friendly policies. We also run a variety of events. You have a couple of photos here from tree adoption events. Those are always very popular. We put up around 1,000 to 2,000 trees for adoption every year, and then work homeowners through how you actually plant the tree, how you tend for the tree, how you get it through those first critical years until it becomes a nice, healthy shade tree. We run a lot of educational programming, including with public schools and with other organizations, and we'll tailor those programs to the needs of the organization. We are presently, we have always had a focus, but are increasing our focus on tree equity, which I was talking about before. The last year, 50% of our tree plantings were in environmental justice neighborhoods, as defined by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. This year, we're trending towards 75%. We're also presently hiring for community tree specialists, which will be someone who will work directly with communities to develop and empower them to get the trees that they need. It is not our job to go into communities and tell them what they need. It is our job to help empower those people across our communities to have the opportunities to get trees if that's what's appropriate, and to give them the tools that they need to take care of those trees, to help those trees thrive. So what can RODF do?
What can RODF do? What can we do as a community? The number one thing I would say is to volunteer. And if you're interested, we have a whole list which on our website, which Michael will probably drop in the chat for you all to see, have the link for upcoming events, upcoming opportunities that you can get involved with, whether it be in person or over Zoom or, you know, a mix in between. Next, we'd say is education. It's really important to be educated on all these topics and have a thorough understanding of everything involved in them, especially for the youth, so they learn at a young age what they can do and how they can support communities and how they can fight oppression locally and be involved. And Tree Pittsburgh hosts a variety of service learning activities for kids. In the past, we've hosted camps and, you know, discussions in the future of things such as that. Our director of education also has a Vimeo channel where he goes around through the woods of Pittsburgh and, you know, teaches little things, little tidbits on the types of trees, on animals that you see, on all sorts of things that you'll find in nature. And they're really fun videos, fun for kids to watch, fun for adults to watch. A lot of educational good stuff in there. Tree tending courses are also really highly recommended. They are usually full day long courses where you get a really good understanding of what it takes to plant trees and take care of trees, and learning all about trees. And, you know, as employees and board members, we're all required to take these courses. I have not actually taken it yet, but I hear great things. Michael only has great things to say about it. Our next upcoming courses are on the dates below. They're all Wednesday evenings. Another thing that we recommend you could do as a congregation is to develop an annual tree planting or tree care tradition as a congregation, whether that be at home at Rodiff or, you know, gathering together, going on the road, doing something involving trees and taking care of trees and nature. I know many of you probably know that Rabbi Henry will be hosting a Walking the Omer event where she'll be walking through Frick Park for 50 days. And I believe that a representative from Tree Pittsburgh will be joining her on at least one of these walks. I don't know which walk yet. I don't think it's been confirmed, but we will, you know, provide someone to give a little, kind of tour, if you will, and show you about all the things that you'll see, teach you about all the things that you'll see along the walk, in terms of nature and trees. Lastly, and very importantly, to support our events, support what we do, is donations. We rely heavily on individual donations, and they really do make an impact to our mission and to help eliminate tree disparities across the community. So, to exist as a nation, to prosper as a state, to live as a people, we must have trees. Trees are important. Thanks all for listening. We really appreciate it. Michael, if you want to say anything else, please let me know.
We had a couple of questions.
Sure.
Olivia, do you want to read those?
Sure. Gary asked, can we adopt and plant a tree in Shadyside ourselves near our apartment building? And Michael, if you want to talk about the opportunities with tree adoption events.
Can we maybe stop the screen share so we can see each other?
Thanks, Gary, for the question. Absolutely, the answer is yes. And my answer in the chat was a little bit distributed. So we have the next tree adoption event that's open to any resident of Allegheny County is on April 30th. I put a link to sign up for that in the chat. We're also looking forward to additional tree adoption events in the fall, potentially in partnership with Rodef Shalom if we're able to work something out. If you do adopt a tree through one of our events, and you'll get more information about how to plant that tree at the event, but you know, there are a number of things to keep in mind. Call 811 before you dig, for example. We'll teach you about how to water the tree, how to care for it. Also open to any resident of the city of Pittsburgh is a Tree Vitalize program, which is a partnership among Tree Pittsburgh and the Pittsburgh Shade Tree Commission and the city of Pittsburgh. That residents can sign up, and Tree Vitalize handles the tree installation. So this is very helpful if you live in a neighborhood like mine, Lawrenceville, where there aren't a lot of green spaces to plant trees. You have to cut the tree well out of the sidewalk. The Tree Vitalize program can assist with that. I can find a Tree Vitalize link as well and put that in the chat for folks.
Yeah, just to respond to Don, I totally agree with you. It's really unfortunate, and I wish that more developers would incorporate green space in their plans. And being in real estate myself, it's kind of, depressing to hear that a lot of people, they just want to maximize their space through parking and through entertainment opportunities. And I know I'm kind of working on it, and I know people are working on making sure that green spaces is more acceptable in new developments. It's really important. I know Michael talked about it in greater detail.
And we do work, we work a lot with developers directly. There are opportunities during the permitting and the zoning process to help work with developers in Allegheny County to incorporate trees into their developments. We've done this in the Somerset at Frick development, helped to develop a tree plan for that in coordination with that developer. And we're going to, that's a very important part of the work, right? That's where the rubber meets the road. So we offer technical assistance as well as practical assistance for people to incorporate trees in their developments.
I have a question. You guys have any fruit trees?
We do, but pretty limited. So we focus on native trees and trees that are not generally planted by or grown by nurseries, commercial nurseries. So the only fruit tree that I'm aware of that we have going on right now is the pawpaw, which is native to Western Pennsylvania and has historically struggled despite being native. We don't, to my knowledge, we typically don't give those out at tree adoption events. We plant those predominantly in parks because the fruits can, if it's on street trees, for example, the fruits can be considered a nuisance. People don't want to clean them up.
Michael, you said something beautiful when we were meeting and planning, which was this concept of an exodus as an opportunity to go to a better place. And that these exoduses of like making a mental exodus, breaking free of the idea that the world has to be a particular way and imagining a future where it's different. And if you have more to add to that, it's really stuck with me.
Well, thanks, Olivia. Sure. One of the things you mentioned, thinking in a different way. So part of Tree Pittsburgh's mission statement is that we're calling out that we are here to protect and defend the urban forest. And those are two words that don't often go together, right? People often think of nature as a place that's different from where we live, right? Part of Tree Pittsburgh's mission is to help people think about themselves as part of nature. Think about themselves as part of the forest. We live in an interconnected ecosystem, right? Trees in an urban environment play a vital part of that. And it's a false distinction to think that we are somehow different from nature. We all have a role to play. We all are interconnected to each other. And so it's not, we don't want to other the forest, right? We are part of the forest. And so that's something that I have found very powerful. It's something that drew me to Tree Pittsburgh in the first place. I didn't grow up in Pittsburgh. I've only been here for a few years. And so when I moved here, I found it a very powerful part of their mission that they're really looking to bind all of us together with this wonderful community that we live in through the medium of trees.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and for sharing your message and for all the work that you do. To seal this part of our service, we invite Molly May to share Eitz Chaim with Greg Siegel, our tree of life. Thank you.
Eitz Chaim hi,
Continuing now with Aleinu, it is upon us to take all of these words of Torah that we've heard this morning and turn them into reality. Aleinu, page 282.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום תשיבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Turn now to Kaddish, page 294. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, as well as those whose yahrzeit we observe on this Shabbat. If you have a name that is not on our list, please add it in the chat. This morning we recall for blessing and honor Charles Batalini, Darnell Campbell Jr., Barbara Dahlberg, Dr. Ed Diamond Jr., Joan Jacobs, Kenneth Karsh, Marion Kessler, Howard Lederer, Joy F. Moss, Daniel Plout, Stacy Zuzak Robinson, Eileen Udy, Liv Zane, Elgin Baylor, George Seagull. And for yahrzeit, we remember for blessing Milt Fine, Joan P. Goldenberg, Sylvia Horn, Janet Krieger, Mimi Lerner, Fanny R. Miller, Paula Oringer, Emily P. Popkin, Ivan M. Popkin, B. Schaefer, Elaine G. Tavel, Erwin Turner, Harry Ziff, and Marvin Berk. Zichronam livracha, may all their memories be for blessing. Yitkadal, please unmute yourself if you're comfortable doing that. We can hear each other's voices. It'll be a bit of a cacophony, but that's a good sound for Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yama divrach rute, v'yamlik malchute, v'chayechon v'yamechon, v'chayei v'chol beit Yisrael, v'gala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya. Yitzbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitzba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, Shmei Kudisha Birku, Leila Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata, Tushbechata V'Nechamata, Damiran V'Yama V'Imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shmaya, V'Chaim Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael, V'Imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Mromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, V'Al Kol Yisrael, V'Al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, V'Imru Amen.
Oseh Shalom B'Mromav, Hu shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru Amen.
Shalom all, Olivia here just to share a few announcements for our week to come. All links and more details are found in your Shalomogram on Monday mornings, and on Friday morning, the service information email. If you're not receiving those or they're coming in weird to you, I don't know. You can email me, tucker@rodoshalom.org. I'll try to get you set up. Our festival service is tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., shared with Temple Sinai. Our seventh day Passover service will also be at 10 a.m., even though it is on Saturday. So if you come at 10:30, we'll still be in it. But if you come at 10, you'll be here at the start. And wonderful readings from Song of Songs and special Torah and Haftarah portions. And of course, our friends for Temple Sinai and getting to pray together. Our Friday service this week is at the normal time of 5:30 p.m. And there's no Torah study next Saturday because of the early start time for the service. Stick around, Kibbutz and the virtual Oneg, and you don't have to write notes on this. It'll be in the emails. This week we sponsor from Classrooms Without Borders, How the Holocaust Came to TV on Thursday, April 1st at 3 p.m. Walking the Omer, we mentioned earlier, starts this Monday morning at 8 a.m., about 8:45 a.m. Rabbi Henry leading a meditation and then a walk through Frick Park, meeting at the parking lot at South Braddock Ave at Biddle Ave in Regent Square. Rain or shine, dogs are welcome. Toby will certainly be there. And while registration isn't necessary, you can sign up for any kind of emergency updates, if there are any, at rscpassover.org/Omer, which brings us, of course, to rscpassover.org. Passover starts at sundown tonight, and we have lots of resources for your Seder. Molly has recorded a video for this special Passover Kiddush, which has a unique tune, and because we're going from Shabbat into Passover, there's a special Havdalah in there. It's really beautiful. There you'll find the service links, Haggadahs from around the web, recipes including vegan Passover recipes, virtual Seders you can attend, poetry, much more. And with that, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom and a Chag Pesach.
Before Greg will just a moment lead us in a closing song, just want to thank our guests again. I have they really appreciate it. I'm hoping that you will join me or someone will join me on these walks. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm curious, Michael, whether your grandmother joined our call this morning. And Justin, I know we just have to do some Jewish geography because I'm sure we know the same people. We will conclude with, as Greg just put it in the chat, those who sow in tears will reap in joy. And then we'll have the traditional blessings and we will conclude our service.
This is from Psalm 126. I'm calling an audible on the last song. It's not what we planned, but it does go with everything else in the service. Sing with me. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. You can sing the harmonies. Those who sow in tears will reap in joy. Those who Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. My thanks go to Don and to Greg and to Molly and to Olivia for everything they do to put into our services. We'll close with Vishamru and Kiddush and Motzi.
ישמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד היא לעולם לעולם, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש. על כן ברך אדוני את יום השבת ויקדשהו. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן.
Amen. For Motzi, we aren't using bread because there's the tradition to not eat bread after about 10 o'clock on Erev Pesach. Egg matzah is not matzah that can be used for the mitzvah of eating matzah on the Seder night, because it's like matzah, but it's not exactly matzah. It has something eggs in and fruit juice. But it says right here on the box that when Passover begins Saturday night, they may be used for the evening and morning meals of the preceding Shabbos. That's right now. So learn something new every day. I mean, I knew that, but I'm sharing it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lecha min haaretz. And we have a closing reading from that collection. May God bless and keep in the ground the roots of old forests, the bulbs of next year's flowers and fossil fuels, hallowed resting places of trees that clapped their hands, and creatures of the sea that sported in the morning of the shining face of God. May God lift up the light of a loving countenance upon you who care for this earth, for this time forth, and the children's forevermore. Heni Ratzon, may be God's will. Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach.